And we are live.
Hello.
So we had some
Finally.
technical issues, but we're chatting now, and it's awesome.
That was nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Yeah, it's always a fun challenge when you're working with technology and trying to connect like we are. So I'm glad that we got it sorted, and I'm so glad that you were here, Adam.
Yeah. Fun. Yeah, fun is the word. Mild panic attack, and I hear about people that always have technical difficulties with these things, but because I don't do stuff like this normally, I don't really run into them. And so when it actually happened to me, I was like, oh crap, no, I can't. No.
Well, we'll start from the top. And hello, my name is Heather, and I am the host of Sunshine and Power Cuts. This week, I'm bringing to you a week of live streams celebrating connections. And today we can celebrate because Adam and I actually managed to connect on a Google Hangout. So we've had 4 great conversations so far. We kicked it off with Elisa Lucas from Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. And hi, Elisa, I see you in the chat there. And then we had Stephen John Drew and Stargate Pioneer from Better Podcasting. The next day we had Paul Chomo from Varmints Podcast, followed by Chris Carlson from the Podcasting Couch. And today, one of the most amazing people who has supported everything that I do and the Sunshine Summit, it is Adam Higgins from the Odd Dad Out podcast. Hey.
Hi. Yeah, great. Yeah, no pressure.
There's no pressure. We're just hanging out.
I kind of feel like I was like halfway. I was like, I'm going to be like super ego man. And I'm like, I'm going to come on and I'm not going to have my camera on because I don't normally show my face. And I realized I've been name dropped in every stream so far. I was like, I'm going to come into this like big old baller celebrity guy. Like, yeah, like I'm too big for you to see me. Except most everybody in here follows me on Instagram, and that's the only place I put my face. and it's only because my wife started nagging me about it because I was totally doing that like Wilson from Home Improvement where I was covering up half my face and everything.
Yeah.
Like I was like, nope. I was like, because I'm not very photogenic, and so I was like, nope. I'm just cover my face. Every picture is this.
Well, it's good to see you, and hi to Lindsay and Sometimes Geek who are in the live chat. Thanks for being here. Today is basically a celebration of connections, and the way that we connected in the first place was actually via podcast share on Twitter, I think, because I was the curator of the week and you discovered my show.
Yeah, and I've kind of, because when Emily first kind of pitched that whole thing and she's like, hey, I want to do this thing and I want to have different people and they share all this stuff. And she was telling me a lot of it came from like basically minute listening and how I would always talk about what I'm listening to and what I'm into. And it's just this big thing. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Get people together and say, hey, this is what I'm into. This is what I'm listening and all that sort of stuff. And yes, I'm very talk with my hands. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's good.
I was like, I'm up here, and even doing my show, I'm all over the place. Like I'm talking to a computer, and I'm right here. Stay here. but she and I was like so excited about the whole thing. And when sorry,
it's okay.
Yeah, I cut all of that out normally. I've got that forever cough that seems to be going around.
That was rough.
But
yeah,
and it's just been, it was like a great idea for me. I was like, this is perfect. Just get a whole bunch of people to share their stuff and share what they're into, because I love sharing what I'm into. And it just kind of, and so I was like, every host that came on, I was like, I'm going to listen to your show. I'm going to check out your stuff, and I'm going to share every little thing that I see that you have. And that's kind of where it stemmed from. And then when you came up as the curator of the week, I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this show. Oh, wow. This is really nice. I'm just going to, and I was at work, and I at that point, you only had a handful of episodes up. I think it was up through maybe 7.
Yeah.
And I binged them all that first night, and I was just like, I was on a chill the rest of the night. It was just, and I just remember reaching out to you, and then I can't say something nice without having a joke involved somewhere. I just remember telling you, and it's funny because I hear you mention this in so many places, the your show calms me down so much that I won't have the rage to do my own show. And I think it was like right before, she was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do my show tomorrow. You've just calmed me down too much.
And then I was like, not sure about that. And I'm like, oh dear, it's too effective. Like, please don't sue me.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
But
really glad
yeah,
that
it
you're
just,
into it.
yeah. And it's one of those where it's like your show drops and like, nope, front of the line. And I've got I've said before, I've probably got 60 some odd podcasts I listen to in a week. And especially like I'm trying to add more, just like reaching out to more and like trying out more shows. But there are some that like, nope, front of the line. Everything else, like, yeah, I'll just scroll through as it comes in and just let the list play. Like, nope, skip. It's like, oh, new Sunshine and Power Cuts now.
Thank you. So you're able to listen to a lot of podcasts, because I mean 60 podcasts a week is a lot and more. So
yeah, and it's basically because of my work, and I work overnight, and so in doing that, I'm able to like throw on my headphones and just go, 8, 9, 10 hours some nights. Plus, I have about an hour commute each way, so I got tons of time.
yeah.
And it just turns into, it's like I need more. And one of the guys at work the other day was like, I told him, I was like, yeah, I was listening to music on the way home. And like, you listen to music now? I was like, yeah. It's like, I don't like starting a long show and not being able to finish it. So I tend to save shorter stuff for my commute. But like, that's when I listen to Night Vale, and when I listen to stuff like, I'll listen to like Gareth's Random Ramblings, which I actually was, I love because I chime in on their live show, and I was literally chiming in on their live show as I was driving home from work yesterday, which was really funny.
You should be safe while driving, I feel.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, I'd be sitting at a red light and commenting on something they said, or like I was literally sitting at a red light and they were talking about driving on the other side of the road, and so I snapped a picture from the inside of the car and tweeted it to him. And so they're getting like just all this back and forth commentary from me as they're doing their live show. It's hilarious.
It's a lot of fun being part of a live show, isn't it? I love it too. Yeah. You kind of like the notification.
And it's the only one that I can really do. And that's what the thing is. He's got the only show that I can really ever sit in on, because of they do it on Saturday, like where I'm at work at a period where, yeah, I can actually do this, where most shows that go live go on YouTube or Facebook Live. And you got to kind of sit there and I can't pay attention to the chat, and I can't do all those things, it's just kind of in a time where I can't participate in all the shows that I would really like to.
Yeah. But you do listen to them,
I
and
get
you
to
do
talk
share.
smack with Gareth. Yeah. And I get to talk smack to Gareth on a regular basis now.
That's good fun. And it's good that you're enjoying it. But you're also like the notification king. Like, as soon as something pops up, you like it, retweet it, comment something or other. And all of your comments that you do are really valuable. Like, they're not just that was great. There's actually some constructive feedback that you give there, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I hate generic comments to things, and I've said before in my show when I talk about, it's like, oh, leave me a review, like a real review. Like, if you don't like it, just tell me. Tell me something honest. I want an honest review. I hate those like generic, oh, you did it. And it's like, great job. Keep on. I was like, it's like, I could have written that about The Great Mouse Detective. This is nothing about my show. I'm like, I want to know what you think of the show. Oh, you suck. Oh, you ramble too much. Yeah, I do. I'm a chatty Cathy. I'll admit it.
And that's good. And I really enjoy your show. And then at the end, you have the recommended listening segment. And you've done an amazing job in the lead up to the Sunshine Summit of listening to all of the other guests and adding them in that segment. So thank you so much.
And that was fun for me to do, because with a handful of them, I did have to actually reach out and like look up the shows. Like, I knew the names. I was like, I'd heard of Andrew Scott, and I'd heard of like Stargate Pioneer and Better Podcasting and Best Forevers, and I'd heard of the shows, but I hadn't actually listened to them. And I think I said, like, when I was talking about Better Podcasting, like, I'd heard that name had just been around forever, but I listened to so many other podcasts about podcasting because I'm that kind of a nerd. And I was like, well, I don't. It's like it's obviously SP is listening to all the same shows I am. So what more could he say that I haven't already learned from Dave Jackson and Daniel J. Lewis and everybody else? I was like, well, I need to listen to their show. So I was like, now I see why everybody else listens to them too, because it's a lot of the same information, but the delivery is completely different, and it's just a funny show.
Yeah.
And I'm really processing what I'm saying because for your sake, I'm trying to keep this PG. So, like I realized when I listened to the playback from their show, it's like, oh yeah, they had to mute me a couple of times. Oops.
But they still were really grateful for what you said. It humbled them, and they said that if that was their mission statement, you kind of nailed it. And I think everyone kind of enjoys having feedback because you then know what other people think. You can't know unless you hear from someone. And so what you did was awesome. They played your clip, and there was, kind of that you did it for them and they did it back for you, and that was really nice.
Yeah, and I do like that kind of because you always kind of feel like you're talking to the void.
Yeah.
And I don't like talking to the void. and I guess for me, I feel like I'm usually doing that because I really do have a very low feedback rate, even though like a lot of what I get is from just the fact that I share a lot of other podcaster stuff, and so they'll like, hey, thanks, that was really awesome, you said some really great things. But short of that, I don't get a lot of outside feedback. And so I was like, it's almost me pandering. Like, hey, I'm going to talk about you. So,
Yeah.
Something? That's most of what I get. And I do remember the first time I got my first unsolicited piece of feedback, and it was from a podcaster, but it was like, it was another one of those, I've seen him around, but I hadn't listened to his stuff. It was like a new show. And I get a notification because I get like the Mike podcast reviews service. And like, oh, you have a review from Pizza Podcaster. I'm like, really? That guy? And I see the review from him. It's like, oh, wow, this dude actually legit listens to my show. Wow. and I've really kind of developed a friendship with him. And he's a really great guy. And I always kind of joked before, it was like, Pizza Podcaster is my spirit animal. The stuff that he talks about in his show. And he's a guy that's who literally is recording into his iPhone in his car as he's delivering pizzas at night.
That's awesome.
And it's this completely out there sort of idea for a show. But I mean, it's not just, sometimes he's talking about pizza stuff, but sometimes it's like, spouting off philosophy and talking about raising bees and frogs and his dog being sick and things like that. I mean, it's just whatever comes to mind. It's like, that's kind of where my show started before I realized I needed to have something more to talk about. And that's when I started, doing the weird news stuff. And like the first year of my show, it was just me rambling for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And I was like, this is kind of crap. But I that's when I added the other stuff to it.
Yeah. You also did the Nano Podmo. Is that what it's called? The pod, when you do a pod thing a month?
Yeah, it rolled out the National Podcast Post month for November.
Yeah. So that was fun, and you called the questions, and it was fun sending some questions in and getting you to answer them.
Yeah, that was awesome. And you were just chiming in all the time, and that was great because not many. I think it was you and Emily sent a couple over, and Chris the Mole Man sent me some questions that I just didn't feel comfortable using. Like, man, dude, you just gotta take it there, don't you? And he just like, it's like I don't run a clean show, but I shy away from toilet humor. And it turned into like, oh, well, yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Fair enough. And
I was like, I'm not dying, I promise.
No, you had a rough run of your health too. And what I like is that you say, family comes first, and we need to look after ourselves, because without that, you can't do what you're doing. So you took a little bit of a break because you were crook. You were not well.
Yeah, and that sucked because that happened in the middle of November when all of that was going down. It was like I'm trying to do a podcast every day, and it turned into a running, like you're watching me degrade. Basically, it's like every day you're seeing my health slowly tick down as my cough gets worse, and like, oh, I'm gonna have to stop doing this now because I've got broken ribs. And so yeah, and it sucked because I then wasn't able to finish it, and I was missing days here and there, and I think I did a couple of like, I'd like double stack days and things to make up. It's like, I, as far as the completing the month, I epically failed, but at the same time, when you end up with 2 cracked ribs and you can't get out of bed for days, it kind of keeps you from podcasting.
Yeah, and I think it's important to get better. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is, like, you're in some of the same groups that I'm in as well. So you're in like podcasts we listen to and the Underdog podcast community. And what other kind of groups are you in?
I don't do a lot of the groups, and a lot of it's just because it takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm in the podcast we listen to, the Underdogs. I'm in the Pod Stuff group, which is on account of you. Actually, when you mentioned that you were, I think you'd just done your interview for them, and you're like, hey, you should check these guys out. I just interviewed for them, and it's one of those things where I'd seen them around, but I was like, whatever, kind of. It's like I've got too much other stuff that I'm trying to do, and then I was like, well, let me look into it. And I started, and I'd seen Perry and Lindsay around with the Hello Life, and I'd been following them and retweeting a lot of that stuff with them. But it's just one of those where I hadn't really listened to the show yet, and then I hear, I was like, the first episode of the Pod Stuff dropped, and I was like, this is a really good idea.
Yeah,
I'm gonna listen to more of this, and then and I started listening to Hello Life, and I was like, yeah, I really should have been listening to them longer.
But you found them now.
Yeah, and now and if you do listen to them, and like I've connected with them, and the very first episode that I listened to with them was the one where they were talking about their finances and their home troubles and things like that. And I just remember immediately reaching out to them like, wow, first thing I hear is really heavy, and just sending them all this. And it turned into I remember there was one night where I was probably back and forth with Perry for close to a half an hour, just chatting with him, just talking about, situation stuff. And hey, you guys can get through this, and it's not like you're out there. I think you're not out there blaming anybody else for your problems. You own up to your mistakes.
Yeah.
And, being, sideline psychiatrist, which I do.
You are very supportive in that, and I've really appreciated that too. And we are going to talk to Perry and Lindsay next, which is quite exciting. But I think that they saw quite an outpouring of support from the podcast community for the rough times that they've been going through, and I think that's amazing. I think that it's nice when, like, we're all over the place, all over the world, and we haven't met each other in person, but we're still there, offering support or anything else to help our friends who we come to love through what they're creating. And they share a lot about their personal life, so it's a privilege to be a part of that, and they're brave for doing that too, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I said when I did their little mini feature on the show this week, actually, that sometimes I'll listen to their show and I'm like, wow, you guys released that. Like I like they're so open, and they're willing to put out even like the uncomfortable conversations. You guys you could have gone away with not releasing that, or come back at a later time, cool down, maybe not fight, but they'll release the fight. And that's just, they're that open, and it's like, this is it, this is reality. So it's really interesting. It's a great show. And they're really cool people.
Yeah. And you also have another show that's kind of on a break at the moment, which is Mom and Dad Cuss a Little.
Yeah, and I really don't know if or when that'll come back, because it was basically my wife and I kind of doing the same thing, just kind of talking about what's going on with us and our marriage stuff and parenting stuff and and we had it going pretty steady for a while, but she decided she's going to go back to school and finish her degree, and she's working on a master's in library science because for whatever reason she wants to be a librarian.
That's good.
but but apparently you have to have a master's degree to be a librarian, but the money is great, so I can't really fault her for that. But her going back to school basically means we really don't have the time together to do that show because like our work schedules are we work on complete opposite schedules, and so what little time we have together, I'm not about to push her into sitting behind a mic. Like, no, she's got work to do and things like that, or we just want to have time together.
Yeah.
So that's
important.
That's more important. Yeah, it's more important than putting out a podcast.
Yeah.
Even though oddly enough, that was the more popular show. I don't tell her that. I was like, it's like you realize that what we do is way more popular than my show, and I accept that. And I have always said that that's the funnier show. I think it's kind of like Gareth and Bex and Perry and Lindsay, where you've got that couple, and they love each other, but they're gonna sit there busting each other's chops, and they're gonna sit there taking shots and making cracks at each other because they're a married couple, and that's kind of what you do. Especially when you stick a microphone in the room, you're just gonna start burning each other because it's funny. And we would do a lot of that, and it's always been really fun to do. But yeah, and it's harder to do when with her school schedule, and I'm not gonna push her on it. So this is very much my thing, and she kind of wanted to be part of it, so we would have one more, we'd at least be able to spend time together while I'm doing my podcast thing that I like to do so much.
That's kind of awesome, and that she got on board, and that you did get some episodes out. That's like, sometimes for people doing a solo show, it can be quite lonely, and having that other person there to bounce ideas off, or getting guests on your show to have that conversation with someone can add a different level to what you put out. And I'm not saying that solo shows are bad or the other ones are any better. It's just different, and a different chemistry and things like that. So it's cool that you've had that and shared that together.
Yeah, and it's always fun to do, but it is that thing. And I've heard, I think it was even Perry and Lindsay who were saying that they're surprised that I do a solo show, especially the way, and I think everybody who I talk to is surprised that I do a solo show the way I do it, because especially in sort of technically comedy, you kind of need, it helps to have somebody else to bounce things off of, and I'm just sitting there bouncing ideas off the voices in my head. So it's a very different sort of thing for me, just sitting there rambling and ranting and being kind of stupid the way I do, versus everybody else that I listen to, they have a co-host that they can sit there and kind of and feed off of and set jokes up and things like that. And it's easier to do that with her, and especially like all of our little inside jokes and things like that. And me calling her short, her calling me old, little stuff like that. But everybody always is surprised that I do what I do, how I do it. Like, yeah, me too. I'm surprised I get up some days and get on with it, because I guess that's why my tagline has been what it is, and I haven't changed it, because I don't do things the way everybody else does them. And it's a weird thing, but it goes back to like my restaurant experience even, and just kind of in life. My brother and I always had this habit of doing everything wrong, a million wrong ways. I was like, we're going to find out every single possible way you can do this wrong, so that when we do it right, we know this is absolutely the right way. Like, oh yeah, I've set myself on fire I don't know how many times. No lie. I have set my ponytail on fire at least 5 times that I can remember. I've burned all the hair off of my arms, and these are all just standard kitchen accidents. But like, yeah, that just made push this further away. When the fryers kick on, watch out. That burning sound is your hair. Things like that. And the guys at work would always, I tell them stories like that, and they're like, no, you didn't. And then it would happen while they were there, and they're like, oh, you weren't lying. Yeah, I know I wasn't lying. It's happened before. And yet I still have long hair.
Well, that's a bonus, I think. So you share what you're listening to while you're at work, or are your coworkers, do they listen to podcasts now, or did they know what they were before you started sharing that with them?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, there's some of them that listen to different podcasts, and some that, like, I've at least nobody around did it all. And so that was, and once I started mentioning my show a little bit, and some of them, there were a couple that were really interested in it. I know there's 2 or 3 guys at work that actually listened to my show. One of them actually was mad at me the other day because he was listening with his girlfriend, and they were listening. It was around Valentine's Day, and they were listening to the Valentine's show. And I was talking about how, I was like, as a guy, you're kind of obligated to do a thing. He's like, you got to do something for your girlfriend or your wife or whatever. And he hadn't done anything for her, and they're listening together, and just like, hey, why didn't you do anything for me? And so the next time I work with him, he's like, thanks a lot. You got me in trouble with my girl. I didn't do it. You're the one who didn't buy her flowers.
Yeah. That's quite funny. Yeah.
But I know there's a few of them that'll listen to, like, there are a lot of them are car guys, and so they found like car tuner podcasts and things like that they listen to just because I've put the little bug in their ear about, hey, here's this thing. Just search for what you're interested in podcast, and you're gonna find one for you. I promise. You're like, oh, you might not like the first one you hear or the second one, but you're gonna find one that's gonna fit you for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of people here didn't know too much about it either. It's not a huge thing, and my friends and family and that weren't sure what it meant or what it involved. And yeah, I think some of them now, even my next door neighbor, she found a couple of podcasts that she's interested in listening to. So it's fun sharing it, and it's fun sort of opening up people's horizons to what else is out there apart from the radio or audiobooks and things like that. So yeah, I want to just quickly go around to, there's been a couple of cool connections that have come out of the Sunshine Summit for you, if you want to share what they
are. Well, I mean, I know Chris yesterday talked about, I just sat down with Chris from the Podcasting Couch just last week, actually. Not sure when that's coming out, because the episode that he mentioned about the live streamer, I think it dropped, at least I listened to it like the day after I heard him talk about it. But yeah, that was really cool. And I've only done a handful of interviews. I think is officially like the 3rd thing I've done. I know. And I'm absolutely giving you all the credit, because like after making my connection with you, everything for me just opened up. I don't know what sort of like magic you worked on me and with our friendship, and you've just been so awesome. But since connecting with you, I did the interview with Podcasts We Listened To, which was around the first of the year. And then through my little mini features of the Sunshine Summit guests, I got the interview on the Podcasting Couch. And now I've got an offer for a guest host spot with Second Press Podcast. And I got another offer with Ask Win. It's Ask Win. I'm going to feel really bad if I get it wrong. Crap. I'm blanking it, and I don't have it in front of me. But Emily from Story Behind was just on there, and she, and it was like right after, and I was commenting on hers, and then I get a message. It's like, hey, would you like to be a guest? I'm like, cool. I don't know what I can offer your audience, but if you're interested, sure. Like I'm always uncomfortable about things like that, because because my show is weird, and because I don't present myself with a kind of I've got 1,000,001 interests. I'm always saying I'm a what do they say, jack of all trades but master of none. I can do 1,000,001 things competently, but I'm not a master of anything. Like, I cook, I play guitar, I could build a house if I had to. It's like I've done electrical work. I paint, I write, I do all these things. I'm a movie nut, but most of that doesn't come through in my show. And for the most part, none of that is like, I don't have an outward expression of that somewhere where I can be like, yeah, my wife didn't know that I could cook and play guitar until after we got married.
I think that's a bonus for her, I guess. And the other thing that I want to say,
that works out.
It has been amazing watching your confidence grow a little bit and you sort of stepping outside of your shell since we connected. But I truly appreciate your support and your friendship and you being there for me, because it's been great just sending you a quick message and going, oh, I don't know how that went. And I get nervous too. And I know it might not come across like that, but I do. And so it's been incredible growing with you, and I can't wait to carry on and our friendship lasts for a really long time.
I know. And I mean, you have been, like I said, you have just been this amazing, light in my life ever since we connected. And I mean, I go back to the podcast post month when I was, where I was sick and I was literally degrading through the show as the month went on. And just about every day, every show, I was getting a message from you, checking up on me. And then when I had to basically put the show on hold because I was sick and cracked ribs and all that, and you were still checking up on me and like, hey, how are the ribs? How are the boys doing? How are things? And then that just has always meant so much to me that you like, and up to this point, we hadn't ever seen each other. All of our communication was like through Twitter messages and things. And yet like that we've had this friendship and this connection and like I'm not going to cry. You've been like, and I legit like had those moments where I was like, that I was getting teared up through that period because that you were showing such concern for this skinny dude in Arizona with, cracked ribs that we never really met. And like, but that you cared and that there's somebody out there that actually cares that I'm all, stuck in bed, injured right now. And you've just been such a great friend to me this whole time. And a lot of that's why I was so like gung-ho about really pushing everything and promoting this whole event, because I mean, like I've got to, I can't, if I don't do anything, I have to support you. You've supported me so much that like I have to, whatever you do, I'm behind you 100%. That's just been kind of the way I've felt about you ever since we connected, is whatever you want to do, I'm there for you and I'm going to support you, because that's what you've done for me.
Thank you so much, Adam. My heart is full. Thank you so much. I love that. And I am here for you and I do care. And yeah, I'm so glad that we not only got to have a chat before today, but that we get to hang out today, because celebrating the connection that we have is amazing. So thank you very much.
I just wish we weren't having the technical difficulties at the beginning.
But we made it. We did make it.
Yep, we made it. We're here.
We are here. So can you let everybody know where they can find the Odd Dad Out podcast and where they can connect with you?
I am at odddadout.blogspot.com because my wife won't let me buy the domain. And on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Odd Dad Out because they're still available. That's about it.
Yeah. So definitely you need
I have a Tumblr, but I don't really use it, so it doesn't. Yeah.
I don't even know what Tumblr is really.
Yeah, it's just one other place.
Okay.
Where people don't look at my show.
Sometimes Geek said that Adam's making it hard to believe he's not a bad person.
Yeah, I know.
And that's kind of been the running thing this week, is that you got feedback that you're such an awesome person, and then Paul Chomo also said that he's had feedback that he's such a nice person, and you guys find it a little bit hard to believe, but you are.
Outside of the podcast world, we're kind of abrasive, is what I'm come to understand about Paul, and even the guys at work, when I say, yeah, everyone thinks that I'm this really nice person, like, they've never met you. I was like, I'm the guy who sits there making fun of the guy's dead mom at work. But I mean, he's in on the joke, and he laughs about it, and he hits me back too. So it's like we'll trade barbs like on a minute by minute basis. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
But I think my deal is that I'm never malicious about anything. I would never say something about somebody to intentionally hurt them.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's like I'll make a crack at somebody. And I think I offended somebody on making a comment on their show the other day, and I apologized, but I don't think he took it very well anyway. But like I never mean ill to people. Like I'm gonna talk a lot of crap, but it's all in the name of comedy for the most part. I just like making people laugh.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I'm a smart ass about it.
Keep doing what you do and being true to who you are, because that is the other reason why we love you too. And your podcast is worth checking out, and people need to leave you some feedback and let you know what they think about it, because it's worth listening to.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. I'm sorry that we're going to have to call it at the end, but it's not the end. We will catch up another time.
Yeah. And I will be, because my plans that had me held off from listening later actually don't start until later. So
yay!
I actually can keep chiming in as things go. So yay!
Cool. We'll see you in the next chat with Perry and Lindsay then. That'd be awesome.
All right.
Cool. See you later, Adam. Thank you.
Bye.
That was a lot of fun with Adam. Definitely check him out at odddadout.blogspot.com. There's a whole bunch of episodes there. Check out the Mum and Dad Cuss little ones as well, because they're still available to listen to. And hit him up on Twitter and leave him a comment. He is a nice guy and he has a lot of fun doing what he does. He's really passionate about it, and also passionate about supporting the things that he loves. It was amazing to have him on today, and I am so grateful for our connection. Coming up next, we've got Perry and Lindsay Johnson from Hello Life WTF and the Pod Stuff. So stick around and we'll be back soon.